He was 20 years old when his father was assassinated, 32 when he died, probably poisoned. And in the 12 years between, he conquered the largest empire the ancient world had ever seen. He never lost a battle. And when they asked him, on his deathbed, to whom he would leave all of it, he answered with 2 words, to the strongest. His name was Alexander, son of Philip II of Macedon. And most of what we know about him was written centuries after his death, which means 2 things. First, that legend starts blurring into fact very early. And second, that a lot of what became cliché about great conquerors was born, quite literally, right here. Alexander was born in 356 BC in a kingdom called Macedon. It sits in northern Greece, but at the time the real Greeks, the Athenians, the Spartans, saw the Macedonians as half-brutes, half-barbarians. They spoke Greek with a strange accent. They drank their wine neat, without mixing it with water. Alexander's father spent his entire life trying to prove that Macedon was truly Greek. And he proved it. Philip II reformed the army, invented a new combat formation, the Macedonian phalanx, with 20-foot spears called sarissas, and, in 20 years, subdued every Greek city-state. By the time Alexander was born, his father was already the most powerful man in Greece. There's a famous story about Alexander at 12. A trader brought Philip an enormous, unbreakable horse named Bucephalus. No grown rider had managed to mount him. Alexander, still a boy, said he could. His father laughed. Alexander turned the horse to face the sun. He'd noticed that Bucephalus was afraid of his own shadow. He mounted, and he rode. Philip is said to have looked at his son and told him, "My boy, find yourself a kingdom worthy of you. Macedon is too small for you." And he wasn't exaggerating. At 13, Alexander was tutored by the greatest living philosopher in the world. His name was Aristotle. You've probably heard of him. For 3 years, in a grove near the town of Mysa, Aristotle taught Alexander philosophy, biology, medicine, and above all, Homer. Alexander became obsessed with the Iliad. He slept with a copy under his pillow, next to a dagger. He wanted to be Achilles. Not as a metaphor, literally. Achilles was Greece's ultimate hero, the perfect warrior. Alexander spent his whole life trying to become him. In 336 BC, in the middle of a wedding at the Macedonian court, Philip II was stabbed by one of his own bodyguards. To this day, no one knows whether it was a conspiracy, a personal vendetta, or an organized coup. Philip died. Alexander was 20 years old, and overnight, he became king. The first months of his reign were one revolt after another. The Greek cities decided it was time to break free from Macedon. Alexander crushed them one by one, with a speed no one expected from someone so young. And when Thebes refused to surrender, he leveled the city and sold the survivors into slavery. Message delivered. At 21, he controlled all of Greece. He could have stayed. He could have consolidated. He could have ruled in peace. He did the opposite. He looked east, saw the greatest empire on earth, the Persian Empire, and decided he was going to take all of it. The Persian Empire was a monster. It stretched from Egypt to India, held 50 million people, and fielded 10 times more soldiers than Macedon. Its king was called Darius III, and in 500 years, no one had managed to defeat the Persians in open battle. Alexander had 40,000 men. Darius had 250,000. Alexander went anyway. In 334 BC, he crossed the Hellespont, the narrow strip of sea that separates Europe from Asia. And as he neared the Asian shore, he did something theatrical. He took a spear and drove it into the sand, declaring that all of Asia was now, by right of conquest, Macedonia. No one had even landed yet. The first battle happened at a river called the Granicus. Alexander personally led the cavalry charge against the Persian nobles waiting on the far bank. He nearly died. A Persian struck his helmet with an axe and came within an inch of splitting his skull. But he won. Fast. Just like that. After the Granicus, Alexander pushed into Asia Minor, moving through the Greek cities on the coast that had been under Persian rule for decades. In most of them, he was welcomed as a liberator. He reached Gordian, a city that guarded an ancient riddle, an impossible knot, woven from tree bark, tied to a sacred wagon. Legend said whoever untied the knot would rule Asia. Alexander looked at it. He tried for a moment. Then he drew his sword and cut the knot clean through. He didn't untie it. He cut it. It's still with us. It became an expression, cutting the Gordian knot. And it worked. His troops believed the prophecy had been fulfilled. A year later, in 333, he met Darius III in person on a narrow plain near a city called Issus. Darius had 100,000 men. Alexander had 40,000. But the plain was tight. The Persian army couldn't fully deploy. Alexander saw that, and he charged straight at Darius. Darius fled. He fled in a horse-drawn chariot, abandoning his family, his treasures, his royal insignia. The Persian emperor's mother, wife, and 2 daughters were captured by the Macedonians. And here's a curious thing. Alexander treated Darius's family with complete courtesy. He gave them their own quarters, guards, respect. The Persian queen mother took to calling Alexander "my son." After Issus, Alexander didn't chase Darius. He went south. He marched down the coast toward Egypt to seize the ports that supplied the Persian fleet. And that led to the most astonishing siege in ancient history, Tyre. Tyre was a fortified city on an island, nearly a mile off the coast. Towering walls. A siege by land, impossible. A siege by sea, extremely difficult. Tyre had a fleet. Alexander looked at it and decided on something insane: build a road from the mainland to the island. Pile stone and timber onto the seabed for 7 months until he'd made a path where before there was only ocean. And he did it. 7 months of impossible engineering, attacks from the Tyrian fleet, storms. But he finished. Tyre fell. It was a massacre. And the ancient world learned that when Alexander wanted a city, he took it. Even when the problem was geography itself. From the Levant, Alexander entered Egypt. The Egyptians had hated the Persians for decades. They received Alexander as a liberator, with cheers, ceremonies, and a title he found fascinating: son of Amunisare, the sun god. Pharaoh by divine right. Alexander crossed the Egyptian desert to a remote oasis called Siwa, home to the famous oracle of Ammonius. All we know of what happened there is that he entered a temple alone, came out hours later in silence, and never told anyone what the oracle had said. But from that point on, he began to refer to himself as the son of a god, not figuratively. Before leaving Egypt, Alexander did something that still echoes today. He founded a new city on the coast and named it Alexandria. He traced out the streets himself, marking them in the dirt with his own heel. Within a few decades, that city would become the intellectual capital of the ancient world. And he founded dozens of other Alexandrias everywhere he went. More than 20 in all, and some still exist. In October of 331 BC, Alexander finally faced Darius again. A vast plain called Gaugamela in what is now northern Iraq. Darius had prepared the ground. He had leveled the entire plain so his 200,000 men, horses, and war elephants could maneuver freely. Alexander arrived with 47,000. The Battle of Gaugamela is still considered, to this day, one of the tactical masterpieces of military history. Alexander deliberately opened a gap in the enemy line, then personally rode through it with his companion cavalry, straight at Darius. Darius fled again, and this time, the Persian Empire was finished. Alexander entered Babylon as a conqueror. Then Susa, one of the Persian capitals, where he found more gold than any army had ever seen. Then Persepolis, the ceremonial capital, the religious heart of the empire. And it was there that something strange happened, something historians still debate. Persepolis burned, deliberately. Alexander is said to have ordered the main palace set ablaze, or agreed to it when someone suggested it during a night of heavy drinking. Was it revenge for the Greek temples the Persians had burned 150 years earlier? A political message? Just too much wine? We don't know. But the heart of the Persian Empire turned to ash. Darius III fled east. He was finally killed, not by Alexander, but by his own subjects, a satrap named Bessus. When Alexander found the body, he covered it with his own cloak and ordered a royal funeral. He wasn't performing. He now regarded Darius as a defeated equal, not an enemy. And from then on, he presented himself as the legitimate successor to the Persian throne. Here begins the strangest part of Alexander's story. He decided that to rule the Persian Empire, he had to become Persian. He started wearing Persian clothes. He adopted Persian ceremonies at court. He married a Bactrian princess named Roxana, apparently out of genuine love, not politics. And he demanded that his generals marry Persian nobles too. The Macedonians were furious. They had come to the other side of the world to conquer the Persians, not to become them. One of the customs Alexander tried to impose was proskynesis. Courtiers had to prostrate themselves before the king, touching their foreheads to the ground. For the Persians, it was normal. For the Macedonians, it was humiliating. They bowed like that only before gods. The tension exploded at a dinner. One of Alexander's closest friends, a general named Cleitus, the same man who had saved his life at the Granicus, began criticizing him in public, drunk, saying he was betraying Macedon. Alexander, also drunk, grabbed a sarissa from a guard and drove it into Cleitus's chest. He killed his friend with his own hands. Alexander shut himself in his room for 3 days, refusing to eat, refusing to speak to anyone. Then he came out. He was never the same again. The ancient historians say this was the first visible crack in the hero. After Darius's death, Alexander could have stopped. He had conquered the entire Persian Empire. He could have gone home, become an absolute king, had children, died old. He went to India. No one in Greece really knew what India was. Alexander wanted to see the Eastern Ocean that Greek geographers believed lay just beyond it. He crossed the Hindu Kush, a range of 7,000-meter mountains, with his whole army, in winter. He lost thousands of men to the ice. He came out the other side with what remained. In India, he encountered a new kind of war, elephants. Horses panicked at the sight of them, and the tribes of the Indus Valley had hundreds. Even so, Alexander won at the Battle of the Hydaspes against a Raja named Porus under a torrential monsoon rain. After the battle, Alexander found Porus, wounded, but still standing, still on horseback. He asked how the Indian king wished to be treated. Porus answered, with dignity, like a king. Alexander looked at him, smiled, and gave the kingdom back, enlarged, for Porus to rule in his name. Alexander wanted to keep going. But his soldiers, after 8 years of marching, thousands of miles from home, soaked with rain, exhausted, said no. They simply stopped. They refused to advance. Alexander wept. He gave speeches. He threatened. Nothing worked. And for the first time in his life, he obeyed the army. The journey home was even worse. Alexander chose to return by a shortcut through the Gedrosian Desert, in what is now southeastern Iran. That desert killed thousands of his men through thirst and heat. Alexander walked on foot alongside them. When a soldier brought him a helmet full of water, he poured it out on the ground, in front of the men, saying he would not drink while they all went without. This is the Alexander the legend loved. In 324 BC, Alexander reached Babylon, which he was turning into the capital of his new empire. He had enormous plans: an expedition to conquer Arabia, a fleet to circle Africa, mass marriages between Macedonians and Persians. He was orchestrating the greatest project of cultural fusion in history. In Babylon, he staged an insane ceremony. He married 10,000 Macedonian soldiers to 10,000 Persian women, all on the same day. It wasn't just politics, it was ideology. Alexander wanted to create a new race, a new people, a blend of West and East. It was more or less utopian. And then, in May of 323 BC, in the middle of a banquet, Alexander drank a cup of wine, felt a sharp pain in his chest, and collapsed. Over the next 10 days, he burned with fever, began to hallucinate, and slowly lost the power of speech. His generals came into the room one by one to say goodbye. He tried to answer, but he no longer could. On the 10th of June, 323 BC, when they asked him in a whisper to whom he would leave the empire, they say he answered with just 2 words, "To the strongest." And he died. He was 32 years old. The cause of Alexander's death is one of the most studied mysteries in history. Poison, malaria, typhoid fever, West Nile virus. Alcoholism. Every theory has serious defenders. What we know is that he was healthy 10 days earlier, and 10 days later he was dead, with no heir, with no plan for succession. When Alexander died, his empire ran from Greece to India, Egypt, Persia, Central Asia, half the known world. And he had no grown heir, only a son not yet born, still in Roxana's womb. What was that going to lead to? It led to war. Alexander's generals, called the Didakai, the successors, began, on the very day of his death, to fight over the empire. For 40 years, they killed one another. Alexander's son with Roxana was murdered while still a boy. Alexander's mother, Olympias, was executed. His wife Roxana, too. The dynasty was gone. But the empire wasn't. In the end, the Diadochi carved everything into 3 great kingdoms. Ptolemaic Egypt, which would produce the last Greek queen, Cleopatra, a story we've already told here. The Seleucid Empire in Asia, and classical Macedon in Europe. All 3 were ruled by Greeks, speaking Greek, steeped in Greek culture. That lasted 300 years. It's what historians call the Hellenistic world. And Alexander, even dead, had set something enormous in motion. Greek culture, philosophy, science, art, architecture, the alphabet, spread from Egypt to India. For the first time in history, there was a world culture linking 3 continents. In Alexandria, the city Alexander founded in Egypt, the greatest library of the ancient world was built decades after his death. 300,000 scrolls, translators, scientists, mathematicians. It was there that Euclid systematized geometry, that Eratosthenes measured the size of the earth to within 400 kilometers, and that the Hebrew Bible was first translated into Greek. In northern India, in a region called Gandhara, something astonishing emerged: statues of the Buddha with Greek features, draped in Greek robes, with wavy hair like Apollo's. It was Buddhist art, but shaped by Greek sculptors left behind in India by Alexander. You can see those statues in museums to this day. Greek became the universal language of the Eastern Mediterranean for 1,000 years. When the first Christians wrote the New Testament, they wrote it in Greek, not Hebrew. When Romans learned to read, they learned Greek alongside it. Alexander, without meaning to, had invented Western culture. One fascinating part of the story is the fate of Alexander's body. He was mummified in the Egyptian style, placed in a gold sarcophagus inside an enormous carriage, and sent back to Macedon to be buried. Except the funeral itself turned into a political fight. One of his generals, Ptolemy, the one who would become king of Egypt, hijacked the body along the way. He took it to Alexandria and buried it there, and it became one of the most valuable relics in the ancient world. Julius Caesar visited the tomb. Mark Antony visited. The Roman Emperor Augustus visited, and, they say, accidentally broke the nose off Alexander's mummy. Then the tomb vanished. No one knows where Alexander's body is. One of the greatest archaeological hunts in the world, even now, is the search for the lost tomb. Archaeologists have been digging in Alexandria for 100 years. Ground-penetrating radar, drones, satellites, nothing. The man who conquered half the world became the most famous corpse ever lost. There are theories. Some believe the tomb was destroyed by the earthquakes and tsunamis that struck Alexandria centuries later. Others, that it lies buried beneath the modern city and will stay there forever. Some researchers even think the body was secretly moved to Venice, and that the relics of St. Mark that have sat in the Venetian Basilica since the 9th century are, in fact, Alexander. That last one is a bit crazy, but it shows the power of the myth. Alexander died at 32. Consider what he had done in those 32 years. Unified Greece, conquered the greatest empire on earth, crossed the Hindu Kush in winter, founded 20 cities, won 10 great battles without losing a single one, and inspired a culture that would last 1,000 years. No one had done anything like it before, and no one has done anything like it since. Julius Caesar, at 32, was a minor politician in Rome, weeping that he'd accomplished nothing. Napoleon, at 32, had only just begun. Alexander, at 32, was already finished. But look closely, Alexander's empire vanished within 40 years. Politically, he failed. He left no dynasty, no state, not even a findable tomb. If you measured Alexander by Alexander's own standards, to reign like Achilles, to be a god, he failed. But measure him by another standard, by what he changed in the world, and the scoreboard flips entirely. Alexander was probably the single individual who altered the course of world history the most in the least amount of time. The languages, the cities, the arts, the religions. Billions of people have lived under the influence of decisions Alexander made between the ages of 20 and 32. And here's the paradox. The thing he wanted most was to be Achilles, the perfect hero, immortal in glory. The thing he actually achieved was something else. He became a system, a cultural force, a current. Without meaning to, he created the template of the great Western conqueror. Julius Caesar took him as a model, Napoleon slept with a biography of him, and Alexander III of Russia chose his name because of him. Even today, 2,300 years later, Alexander remains one of the most common male names in the Western world. You probably know 3 of them. All of them, without knowing it, honor the Macedonian boy who wanted to be Achilles. It's important to say this too. Alexander is not a clean hero. He destroyed entire cities. He sold populations into slavery. He massacred civilians. He executed his own generals for conspiracy, some guilty, some not so much. He killed his friend Cleitus while drunk. In the judgment of modern historians, he was a genius and a monster at the same time. What makes Alexander difficult is exactly this. He is both. One of the greatest military and political geniuses in history, yes, and also a tyrant capable of horrors in the heat of drink. You can't pick just one half. Both belong to the same man. And it's precisely that complexity that historians find fascinating. If Alexander were only a monster, the case would be closed. If he were only a hero, he'd be a statue. He is both, swinging between them chapter by chapter. That's what makes him, 2,300 years later, still human. In the end, maybe the strangest thing about Alexander is this. He conquered the world without ever growing old. The image we have of him, from the busts, the coins, the statues, is always of a young man in his early 20s, hair tousled, gaze intense, the face of someone who still has time. There was never an old Alexander. If you ever visit the British Museum, the Louvre, or the Archaeological Museum of Naples, look for the busts of Alexander. You'll notice they're almost all identical. The same young face, the same characteristic tilt of the head to one side. Something even the ancient biographers noted, the same gaze. It's as if he had frozen time. And maybe that's the strangest lesson of Alexander. He lived 32 years. He spent 10 of them on the march, sleeping in tents, eating little, freezing or roasting, wounded in nearly every battle, and still crossed half the world, changing everything in his path. Count the days, about 3,000 days of pure conquest. That's nearly 3 continents per decade, an empire a year, a city founded every 2 months, a man who, in 3,000 days, changed the world for 3,000 years. And if he seems to you like a mythological figure, a hero who couldn't possibly have existed, well, that's because he sort of was. And it was Alexander himself who made it so. He spent his entire life turning his own history into myth. He hired official historians. He scattered coins bearing his own face across the empire. He told his soldiers he was descended from Achilles and from Hercules. He wanted to be a legend, and he became one. If you love history told the way it deserves to be told, big, real, and impossible to forget, subscribe to World and Stories. The world is full of stories like this one, waiting to be told right. A boy who slept with Homer under his pillow. A king at 20. A man dead at 32. In a hot room in Babylon, whispering 2 words. Alexander the Great. Until the next story.